Welcome, lords and ladies, back to the realm. I am your humble host, the Goat King, and now we're going to get into the classes. This whole project is taking longer than I expected, but we're going to start with classes, and we'll go through the overview, and we'll talk about the Envoy. Let's see what this playtest has in store for us. Okay, so this here, canny Starfinder fans might notice the absence of the Technomancer and Mechanic classes. Which are not present in this playtest, though they will appear in the core book, and here it also says they will enjoy a separate playtest window. So we will get to playtest those classes. The Mechanic is like my favorite class from the original core classes for Starfinder, so it'll be good to get a look at what they're doing with those. Yeah, okay. Class playtesting. The Envoy is a charisma-based class that combines battlefield direction and leadership. Lacking any sort of built-in spellcasting, the Envoy is a class that lets players live the fantasy of supporting allies without the need of magic. Envoys excel at directing their allies and party members, granting powerful buffs that improve if the Envoy performs actions that fulfill a lead-by-example clause. This might be simple, like nominating and striking a foe, or more intricate, based on your selected leadership style, and involving actions like raising a shield or a specific skill action. Play the Envoy if you want to be the smooth talker, with a plethora of skills, and be able to take on a variety of different roles in combat while guiding your party members. That's a little intro blurb here for the Envoy. Okay, let's see. You're a master influencer. You make your way in the universe with a charming smile, quick wit, and keen sense of self-preservation. You're a leader who motivates your teammates, pushes them past their limits, and helps them through tough spots. You excel at getting others to do what you want, but you're always ready to face trouble head-on when things take a turn for the worse. You might be a con artist, diplomat, performer, or even a military officer, or you may take on whatever role the situation demands. Let's see, their key attribute is Charisma. For hit points, they have 8 plus their Constitution modifier. You will notice here, no stamina points. No hint of it at all. Stamina's been removed. Now, in the second edition Game Master Core, before the remaster, there was a variant rule for stamina points. If I'm not mistaken, that is not in the GM Core, the remastered version of the Game Master book. So the question being, are we going to see that here in Starfinder as a variant option, or are they just kind of going away from stamina completely? Which would be unfortunate. I really liked stamina. I thought it was a very neat way to represent character health in these kind of combat situations. Certainly more... I mean, it's certainly still very gamey, but it feels a little more like it's representing something in the game than just straight hit points. But I can see why it's not in the base game for Starfinder. Moving to the 2E system, healing is very easy in 2E. Even if you don't have magical healing, like you can, with a couple of skill feats, you can treat wounds every 10 minutes, and it's just not an issue. In first edition Starfinder, healing, unless you had access to magic or consumables, was a harder prospect. Rather funnily, treating a person's wounds was something they could only do like once per day, I think, which is definitely different from how 2E works. So it makes sense that they don't have stamina, but I would love to see it put back in as a variant rule. Let's see, during combat encounters, you issue directives to your team, granting benefits if they follow your lead. Your words and deeds bolster your allies or harry your foes, and your cunning can get you and your team out of danger. During social encounters, you are often the face of your team, whether you use diplomacy, lies, threats, or whatever words it takes to get your way. While exploring, you readily adapt to new situations and excel at motivating your team to overcome obstacles. Let's see. Initial proficiencies. Trained in perception and fortitude, expert in reflex and will. Trained in one of the following skills: deception, diplomacy, intimidation. trained in one skill based on your leadership style. So that is separate from these three. Trained in a number of additional skills equal to 6 plus your intelligence modifier. So this is the skill monkey, for sure. They were pretty skill monkey-y anyways. Let's see. And it looks like they get a skill feat, or not skill feat, a skill increase every level. Yeah, it looks like they get a skill increase at every level. So this is kind of like the rogue getting a skill increase every level. Lots and lots of skills. Let's see. Trained in simple weapons, martial weapons, and unarmed attacks. Trained in light armor and unarmored defense. And trained in their class DC. Let's see. Ancestry background, attribute boosts, initial proficiencies. Envoy directive. Envoys encourage their allies by using directives. A directive is an insight, order, or stratagem that benefits any allies who follow it. Each envoy directive includes a way for the envoy to lead by example. If the envoy takes their own advice and follows through on the directive before the end of their turn, they unlock an additional advantage for themselves and their allies. By default, most directives have the visual trait, representing the envoy performing guiding motions to assist. However, envoys can choose to replace the visual trait with, or simply add, the auditory trait, to represent shouts of encouragement as part of these actions. You begin with one envoy directive. You can learn more through the envoy class and envoy class feats. You can use any number of directives around, but you can't use the same directive more than once. An envoy's directive and the benefits it grants lasts until the beginning of your next turn, so that's just, they all last until the beginning of your next turn. Unless one of these says it doesn't. Perhaps that might happen. You gain Get 'em Envoy Directive. Get 'em. You single out an enemy for you and your allies to focus on. This concentrated assault weakens their defenses. Select a creature within 60 feet that you can see. That creature takes a -1 circumstance penalty to armor class and reflex saves to the beginning of your next turn. If you lead by example, which is if you attack the target you selected before the end of your turn, so you can't be doing it with a reaction, you reveal a weak point in your foe's defenses, you gain a circumstance bonus to damage rolls against the target, equal to 1 plus half your charisma modifier, and your allies gain a +1 circumstance bonus to damage rolls against the target. As your envoy level increases, so does this damage. Increase the damage by 1 at 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th, every 5 levels. Now, here's a question. Is that by 1 added to both the damage you do and the damage your allies get? I would assume so, but that is not clarified. Social mastermind. You rely on your force of personality and powers of persuasion to influence others, for good or ill. You gain the activity Size Up and the action Saw It Coming. Okay. Size Up. Once per hour. Let's see. You spend 1 minute observing a specific individual, 10 minutes researching a specific individual on the infosphere, or 1 hour networking and gathering information about a specific individual in a settlement or appropriate location that they frequent, learning how best to endear yourself to, scare, or otherwise manipulate that individual. This subject is your asset. If you assess your asset via observation, you don't need to know their identity, but if you assess your asset via researching or networking, you must know their identity, which requires at least 2 relevant pieces of information about them. Examples: name, place of origin, current residence, name of their parent or significant other, their employer, or their organizational affiliation. The GM determines what constitutes relevant information for this purpose based on the asset you've selected. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to deception, diplomacy, intimidation, and perception checks made against your asset, or in retaliation to your asset if the target knows your asset. If the target is a target not your asset? Oh, okay, I understand. Okay. Deception, diplomacy, intimidation against your asset, or if you're using one of those skills against another, like an NPC, and they know your asset in relation. I don't know. I said retaliation, didn't I? Oops, relation. Okay, so you're better at deceiving, diplomacying, and intimidating the asset and individuals you're interrogating about the asset. Add a +1 circumstance bonus to attempts to recall knowledge about them. And you can maintain a number of assets equal to your charisma modifier. If you size up other assets after that, your new asset replaces a previous one. I didn't see anything saying how long they can be your asset, so it kind of looks like that just stays. They can just be your asset forever, I think. Looks like it. As long as you don't go over your maximum. Okay, Saw It Coming is a free action triggered when you are about to roll initiative in an encounter in which your asset is one of your opponents. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to your initiative roll, and you can immediately do one of the following. Interact to draw a weapon, step, or stride. That's nice. +1 circumstance bonus is okay. Initiative rolls that never really feel like the +1 does much. It might, but the free action is nice. To draw a weapon, step, or stride, that's nice. Leadership style. Whether it comes naturally, you train for it, or you were thrown into a leadership role unexpectedly, you've developed a personal style of leading others. At first level, select a leadership style, you become trained in the indicated leadership skill, and you gain the indicated leadership perk. At 6th level, certain actions become your acts of leadership and grant you a benefit when you perform those acts. These actions vary depending on your selected leadership style. When you use an act of leadership after issuing one or more envoy directives earlier that turn, you can choose one envoy directive you activated. You grant the lead by example benefits for that directive even if you didn't meet the usual requirements to lead by example. You can do this once per turn. Okay, that's cool. That gets you out of, like, all of these things are going to have a lead by example. If you, by 6th level, you'll have some actions that you can kind of always do, depending on your leadership style, that will satisfy a lead by example. That's cool. From the front, you're most comfortable leading your allies from the front lines of battle while you fight alongside them. You might employ a shield to help weather the storm of incoming gunfire, or simply lead with a pointed finger and a shout of encouragement as you run into the center of the enemy formation. Athletics is your leadership skill. Your perk is you're trained in medium armor. You become expert in medium armor when you would become expert in light armor, and so too with mastery. Acts of leadership at 6th level, they are raise a shield, or take a move action to move within an enemy's reach. Ray lead from the fronty. From the shadows, you prefer to direct and inspire allies in subtle ways, without drawing too much attention from your enemies. This lets you control the flow of battle from the backfield, or be closer to the action, but still just out of sight. Stealth, of course. You gain assurance and stealth as a bonus feat. Cool. I've always liked the assurance feat. I know in some ways it's kind of not a super great feat. It's really only good against like low level checks because you lose a lot of your bonuses when you're using assurance. But I mean, I've always liked it. Hide, sneak, and take cover are your acts of leadership. Let's see, we got guns blazing. You lead your team by making an impression, and the best way to make an impression is with firepower. Acrobatics, you gain incredible initiative as a bonus feat, and you can make a ranged strike against an enemy that has a multiple attack penalty, or perform an area fire or auto fire, or reload an empty ranged weapon. Make a ranged strike against an enemy that has a multiple. I think it means the strike has a multiple attack penalty. I mean, this one's good. It's just, you want to keep shooting, you keep shooting. That's your act of leadership. Just keep shooting. In the spotlight, whether through conversation, clever lies, dazzling performances, or threats, you use your charm and cunning to influence others. Directing your team's actions is second nature to you. Performance, impressive performance as a bonus feat. Looks like a lot of these are just getting a bonus feat. Assurance, incredible initiative, impressive performance, express driver, digital diversion, battle medicine. Yeah, looks like most of those, other than the armor one, those are all you get a bonus feat for the leadership perk. Let's see. In the spotlight, perform or issue another directive. So in the spotlight, you're just telling people what to do a lot, because issuing a second directive counts as the lead by example for your previous directive. Okay, hot shot. From the driver's seat of a land cruiser or the cockpit of a starship, you're always at home piloting a vehicle and could provide orders to allies without a second thought. Piloting, express driver, drive, take control, or stunt are your acts of leadership. Okay. This one is super focused on vehicle combat or starship combat. That leaves me wondering, is vehicle combat and starship combat going to take a more prominent role in the second edition? Because in the first edition, those things could sometimes just kind of fall by the wayside and not really get used all that often. And if your whole class subclass was built around doing those things, you'd be kind of out of luck. So I'm curious to see if those are going to take a larger role. We're not really going to see the starship stuff until later, but maybe we'll see some stuff about vehicles in the equipment section. Doesn't look like there's going to be anything about vehicles. So maybe we'll see all of that later on. Infosphere Director. You know how to control the flow of information, which can be crucial during a battle or while planning your next mission. Okay. Computers, digital diversion, created diversion using computers, and recall knowledge are your acts of leadership. This would be good for like an influencer, I think, like a VidTuber or whatever. And the last one, through desperate times, you stepped up to lead during difficult times, and it's your job to help your team live to see another day. Let's see, medicine, and battle medicine is the feat. Whenever you administer first aid, do battle medicine, or use a healing item on any ally. Cool. Okay. Envoy feats, skill increases. Adaptive talent. This comes in at 3rd level. You're quick thinking and adaptable, capable of picking up new skills and talents with little practice or training. During your daily preparations, select one skill feat that you meet the prerequisites for. You gain this skill feat until you prepare again. Okay, and that expands at 9th and 15th level. You can take one extra skill feat for each of those levels, and you can stack them together if they have prerequisites. So you can use temporary ones as the prerequisites for other temporary ones. So, you get lots of skill feats. That is what this does. It gives you, like, the fighter at a certain level can start swapping their class feats. The Barathu, Ancestry, can swap out Ancestry feats. I'll admit, personally, these kinds of features are just a bit too much bookkeeping for me. Going through the feats list and picking a new feat every day seems like too much bookkeeping for me. But, I'd probably just use it to pick an extra skill feat. Sorry. But, yeah, that's probably what I'd do with it. Okay, moving on. Wise to the game, also at 3rd level. Using your words to influence others is second nature to you, and you easily recognize when others attempt to use the same tactics against you. You gain a +1 status bonus to your perception DC against attempts to feint or lie to you and attempts to divert your attention with creative diversion, and a +1 status bonus to your will DC against attempts to demoralize you, and this bonus increases to +2 against your asset. Perception expertise at 5th level. Practiced influencer at 5th. You're a master at influencing others and using your skills to get the best result out of a social situation. Let's see, it's a free action. It's a fortune effect once per day. You are about to roll a deception, diplomacy, or intimidation check, but you haven't rolled yet. You roll twice, take the higher result. Okay. So we've seen a bunch of fortune effects in the ancestries. And I don't think you had to choose to use it before you actually rolled for most of those. So this is, technically a little weaker. But fortune's always nice. Weapon expertise at 5th level, fortitude at 7th, and improvised mastery at 7th as well. Whether by luck or instinct, you display impressive talent on the fly. Let's see, it's a free action once per day. You are about to attempt a skill check using a skill you don't have master proficiency in, but you haven't rolled yet. You trust your instincts to see you through. You gain master proficiency with the triggering skill for the skill check. So, did we mention already that the Envoy is going to be a skill monkey? They're going to have all the skills. They're going to be able to swap out skill feats. They're going to get skill increases every level. And if they just happen to not be master in a skill, you might not be trained in that skill at all. But it's the one skill you're not trained in, so once per day you can use it as if you're a master. Wowzers. Okay. Also at 7th level, Leader's Confidence. Whether you're cool and collected, or projecting confidence through gritted teeth, you prepare your team for incoming danger. You gain the Steel Yourselves Envoy Directive. Okay, this has the healing trait, and it's once per hour. A single action. You encourage your allies to brace for impact or otherwise prepare for incoming damage. Until the beginning of your next turn, you and any ally within 60 feet who can sense you can spend one action to brace for impact. This action has the Concentrate trait. Whoever braces for impact gains temporary hit points equal to your Charisma modifier plus half your level for 1 minute. If you spend an action to brace for impact, you and any ally who braces for impact will also gain a +1 status bonus to saving throws against effects that deal damage for 1 minute. 1 minute? Nice. Weapon specialization at 7th. Your class DC goes up to expert at 9th. Hidden agenda at 9th. Okay. You've become an expert at veiling your schemes. When a creature rolls a critical success and a perception check to sense motive against you, or a skill check to gather information, or recall knowledge about your secrets, they get a success instead. When you roll a critical failure at a saving throw against an effect or ability that would read or reveal your thoughts, emotions, and tensions, you get a failure instead. I don't know how often that'll come up, but it is cool. Maybe it'll come up more often than I'd expect. In a sci-fi game, information is more freely available, and the Envoy definitely seems to be one who wants to interact with that system a lot. So if there's an Envoy on the team, it seems the Game Master will be regularly reminded about that, so maybe this will come up more often than I think it would. Perception Mastery at 11th. Resolve at 11th. Will saves increase to Master, and you bump it up to a critical success whenever you roll a success. Savvy Influencer at 11th. You can use Practiced Influencer twice per day. Additionally, the first time per day when you roll a natural 1 on a Deception, Diplomacy, or Intimidation check, you don't automatically reduce your degree of success. Practiced Influencer, is the fortune effect you need to declare. So now you'll use it a lot more often. Effortless Influencer, so bumps again at 13, increases to 3 times per day. Furthermore, when you succeed at one of these checks, allies within 60 feet who witness your success gain a +1 status bonus to the next check they attempt with that skill within 1 minute, or +2 if your check was a critical success. Light Armor Expertise at 13th. Tactician at 13th. You know your allies' abilities well, and you can motivate them to leverage their strengths at a key moment. During your daily preparations, review your team's capabilities with up to 5 allies. You and each of these allies decide whether each is an attacker, defender, expert, or spellcaster for the purposes of this ability. Later, you can issue the following directive. Once per 10 minutes, and it is 2 actions, so it's a big one. You inspire your allies to use their talents and push themselves to the best of their abilities in a stressful situation. You and your allies within 100 feet gain a benefit based on the role you chose during daily preparations. Attackers can roll twice and use the better result the next time they attempt to strike a foe. Defenders can force their attacker to roll twice and use the worst result the next time they're attacked, or defenders can roll twice and use the better result the next time they attempt a saving throw. Experts can roll twice and use the better result the next time they attempt a skill check, and spellcasters can roll twice and use the better result the next time they roll an attack roll or a check, or they can force one target to roll twice and use the worst when attempting a save against their thing. Lead by example. If you use the benefit based on your chosen role before the end of your turn, each of your allies within 100 feet who chose a role during your daily preparations gains temporary hit points equal to your level. These temporary hit points last for 1 minute. I mean, it is a 13th level ability, and it's a cool one. I like it. Once per 10 minutes. You know, if your whole group chooses to be experts, you just use this to get fortune on all your, stealth rolls or something. Interesting. Weapon mastery at 13th, greater weapon specialization at 15th, legendary improvisation at 15th. Your improvisation skills have dramatically improved. Improvised mastery triggers on skill checks using a skill that you don't have legendary proficiency in, rather than mastery, and grants legendary proficiency for the triggering check. Wowzers. Reflex mastery. The normal stuff you get when you get reflex, the normal stuff you get when you get mastery, including that bump to critical successes. At 17th level, we've got greater resolve, legendary will saves. Just a whole bunch of stuff in here about improving to critical successes or improving out of critical failures, and taking half damage from damaging effects even if you fail your save. Whole bunch of stuff in here. 17th level, legendary perception. Indescribable agenda. It's nigh impossible for your enemies to unravel your schemes or discern your long-term plans. When a creature rolls a critical success or success at a perception check to sense motive against you, or on a skill check to gather information or recall knowledge about your secrets, they get a failure instead. When they roll a critical success or success, they get a failure instead. So just tell the game master no, you can't learn about that. Critically succeeding isn't enough. You're not allowed to learn about that. That's cool. Light armor mastery, silver tongue. This is your capstone. So select one of those charisma skills. That skill's proficiency rank and your leadership skill increase to legendary. If that skill was already legendary, you can reroll that skill check once per day and take the higher result. This reroll is a fortune effect. Your proficiency rank for your Envoy class DC increases to Master. So, I think most of what this is doing is that fortune effect. Because if you're... if for some reason one of those skills you were entirely untrained in by the end of the game, unlikely but possible, you can make it legendary. Though, with your ability to just make a skill legendary for a check anyways, you might not want that. I think the fortune effect is the more relevant part here. Here's a question. The way this is worded, there is a little bit of ambiguity. If both the selected skill and your leadership skill were already legendary, would you get this fortune effect to both? Or does this only apply to the charisma skill that you bumped to legend, or that was already legendary, but it wouldn't apply to your leadership skill. I do not know. And we're here at the feats. Several player pages of feats. I'm just gonna pick through these and see if I find a couple that are really cool. There are probably a lot that are really cool, but that is a lot to go over. And then after that, we will take a quick peruse at the sidebar on playtesting the envoys, and I'll highlight stuff in that for us. Okay, that's interesting. Take them alive. It's a directive, single action. Urge your allies to take your enemies without loss of life until the beginning of your next turn. So you can do this every turn if you really need to take people alive. You and your allies don't take the normal -2 circumstance penalty when making a non-lethal attack with a weapon that doesn't have the non-lethal trait, which is nice in its own. That ditching that -2, that's pretty cool. Pretty utility. More importantly, when you or an ally cast a spell that deals damage and doesn't have the Death or Void trait, you can add the non-lethal trait to the spell. That's cool. I like that. I don't know of any other ways to get non-lethal on spells that don't already have that trait. If you know of something, make sure to point it out in the comments. But I don't know of anything that does that. Let's check the lead by example. If you make a non-lethal attack against a single target before the end of your turn, you direct your allies to take down a specific target for later follow-up. The target of your attack is treated as having the Get 'em directive on them, though you don't benefit from the lead by example effect. So the lead by example effect for Take 'em alive is the directive Get 'em. 2 directives for 1. I mean, okay, Confounding Disquisition, if I'm pronouncing that right. 2 actions. Trained in deception or diplomacy. You try to enthrall a foe with a convoluted and utterly pointless monologue that leaves your audience dumbfounded. You attempt to check against their will DC if they're within 30 feet, and then they're immune to it for 1 day. On a critical success, the target is stunned 1 and stupefied 1 for 1 round, and this is level 6 feat. On a success, they're just stupefied 1. On a failure, the target takes a -1 status penalty to perception checks and will saves for 1 round. Okay, another level 6 one. Hurry as a single action. You urge an ally to pick up the pace and contribute more to the events happening around them. 30 feet. They become quickened for 1 round. They can use the extra action to interact, step, or stride. And they're immune for the next 10 minutes. But there's no limit on how many times you can do this. So you could do it every round. If it's worth losing an action to give your ally a limited action, that could be good. Okay, ready for anything. When you aren't proactively directing allies, you can focus on a situation's shifting circumstances and prepare to react. At the end of each of your turns, if you didn't use any envoy directive that turn, you gain 1 additional reaction, which you can use before the beginning of your next turn for any envoy reaction. This is one I could see picking up if you've picked up, a bunch of these reaction feats, because there's a whole bunch of them in here that are just reactions you can do. At least 1 in every level category for these feats. That's cool. Hold up. Okay, so just a few here as we're getting to high levels like 14, 16, 18th level. Let's take a look at these. Ready to roll. You roll initiative, and as a free action, you do one of your directives. Cool. 16th level. Extend directive. As a free action, you continue a directive that you had going last round. Every round you can do this if you've had a directive the previous round. So this just means you have 1 more directive going on at all times because you're maintaining one of them with a free action every round. You still need to do the lead by example thing every round if you want to keep that, though. And follow the leader. Your allies implicitly trust your orders. You're always considered to be leading by example for all of your active envoy directives. So, okay, it's cool, I think. It's certainly powerful, because that frees up actions a lot. But it does kind of... It takes one feature of your subclass and says, yeah, that doesn't matter anymore. I don't know how... I mean, it's certainly worth taking. Yeah. Okay, and then 20th level, one of the capstone feats, True Leader. Once per turn, you can issue an envoy directive as a free action. So, at this point, by round 2, you have 2 directives going absolutely free. You're probably got follow the leader, so you don't need to do anything to lead by example. You're just throwing out directives constantly. Micromanager. I don't know. Let's see. Let's look at the playtesting sidebar, and then we'll close out for the day. They're excellent leaders, and of course that makes them super bossy. It's part of their charm. Remember that when playing them, the leader is only as good as their team. Many of your abilities are less effective if your allies aren't willing to follow your directives, or if you aren't willing to use strategies that work with your allies. Teamwork makes the dream work. So, this whole paragraph is talking about the directives, and an important part here is mentioning how there's some of them you'll get automatically throughout your level progression. Those are the ones they consider to be core to the class, and that the question they're leaving here to be answered is if we, the playtesters, feel that any of them that are feats, that are optional, feel like they should have been part of the core chassis. Let's see. Here, the socialness of envoys is being pointed out and how it's mostly going to be useful outside of combat, and especially in long-running campaigns where you can have long-running relationships with NPCs and the like. Okay. Here's a question they're leaving for us. Do they have too many reactions? As we saw, for almost every feat level, all the way up to 14, skipping 12, but I think all the way up to 14 there's at least one reaction feat in each level category for feats, and they're asking here if that's too much, and I think it seems like that's just kind of one of the build options they gave. If you want to be a really reactive commander. I don't know. If you've got 8 different reactions, even with that feat that lets you use an extra one if you didn't do a directive, I imagine if I was making an envoy, I'd probably just pick up 1 or 2 of the reactions. I'd pick 1 or 2 of them that I thought were really cool, and when I was going by that level, I'd pick them up. And I always like having more options, so I don't think there are too many. Anywho, that is the directive, or that is the envoy. Next time when we come back to this, we'll be talking about the mystic, and look at that artwork. But not too long, because we'll get back to that. Next time, we'll be talking about the mystic, but until then, thank you for visiting the realm. I have been your host, the Goat King, and as always, travel with loyal companions.